Jake Morrison wiped the sweat from his forehead as he walked through the crowded marketplace on Zephyr Prime. The air was thick and humid, filled with strange smells from alien food vendors. Creatures of all shapes and sizes pushed past him, their voices creating a constant buzz of different languages. He checked his watch again. Nina would be here soon. They had been partners for 3 years now, and she was never late. Jake trusted her with his life, which was good because their job required exactly that kind of trust. A message popped up on his wrist device. It was from their handler back on Earth. The job was confirmed. Jake felt his stomach tighten slightly. This one was going to be dangerous. 20 minutes later, Nina Brooks appeared at his side as if from nowhere. She had a talent for moving through crowds without being noticed. Her brown hair was tied back and she wore simple clothes that helped her blend in with the other humans in the marketplace. "Ready for this?" she asked quietly. Jake nodded. They walked together toward the meeting point, a small building on the edge of the commercial district. Neither of them spoke about what they were really doing here. In public, they were mercenaries, for hire. In reality, they worked for Earth's Special Operations Division. The building looked ordinary from the outside, but Jake knew it was heavily guarded. His enhanced eyesight picked up the hidden sensors and cameras. Nina's cybernetic implants were already scanning for weapons and security systems. Inside, they were led to a small room with metal walls and no windows. A large alien sat behind a desk waiting for them. Jake recognized the species, Zephyrian. They looked like giant lizards that had learned to walk on 2 legs. This one wore expensive clothes and had 4 eyes that moved independently. "You are the humans?" the alien asked through a translation device that hung around his neck. "We are," Jake replied. He kept his voice calm and professional. The Zephyrian studied them for a long moment. Jake could see doubt in those 4 eyes. Humans were still new to the galactic community. Many aliens thought they were weak because they came from a small, insignificant planet. "I am Kex Vorthak," the alien said finally. "I have a job for you, one that requires discretion." Nina remained silent, but Jake could see her watching everything. She was memorizing the room, counting exits, calculating distances. It was what they had been trained to do. "We're listening," Jake said. Kex Vorthak activated a holographic display. The image showed a human woman with blonde hair and green eyes. She looked to be in her 30s. "This is Lisa Kane," the alien said. "She broke into one of our research facilities and stole important data. We want her captured alive." Jake studied the image carefully. He had never seen this woman before, but that didn't mean anything. There were thousands of human operatives working across the galaxy. "What kind of facility?" Nina asked. It was the first time she had spoken. "Military research," Kex Vorthak replied. "On Kepler 442b, very secure, very dangerous." Jake nodded slowly. "What's the payment?" 1 million credits. Half now, half when you deliver her." It was a lot of money. Too much money for a simple capture job. Jake's instincts told him there was more to this than the alien was saying. "We'll need full access to the facility," Jake said. "Security codes, building plans, everything." Kex Vorthak hesitated. "That is difficult to arrange." "Then find a way," Nina said coldly. "We don't work blind." The alien's 4 eyes focused on her. Jake could see him trying to decide if he should be offended or impressed by her directness. "Very well," he said finally. "But you must understand, if you fail or if you betray us, there will be consequences." Jake smiled. It was not a friendly smile. "We don't fail." Something in his tone made the alien lean back slightly. Kex Vorthak had hired mercenaries before, but there was something different about these humans, something that made him uncomfortable. They spent the next hour going over details. The facility was on a desert planet with a small colony. Lisa Kane had been seen there 3 days ago. Security was provided by Hegemony soldiers, the galaxy's most feared military force. As they prepared to leave, Kex Vorthak called out to them. "One more thing," he said. Other mercenaries have tried to capture this woman. None have returned. Jake and Nina exchanged a look. This was getting more interesting. What happened to them? Nina asked. We don't know. They simply disappeared. Outside the building, Jake and Nina walked in silence until they were sure they couldn't be overheard. This is a setup, Nina said quietly. Obviously, Jake replied. The question is what kind of setup? Think Lisa Kane is real? Jake shrugged. Maybe, maybe not. Either way, we're going to that facility. You think it's worth the risk? Jake considered this. Their real mission wasn't to capture Lisa Kane. It was to gather intelligence on Zephyrian military operations. This job was perfect cover for getting inside one of their most secure facilities. Yeah, he said finally. I think it's worth it. They made their way back through the marketplace toward their ship. Neither of them noticed the small group of aliens watching them from a distance. The watchers were talking quietly among themselves in a language the translation devices couldn't handle. If Jake and Nina had been able to understand them, they would have heard something interesting. The aliens weren't talking about the job or the money. They were talking about humans in general and why smart mercenaries avoided jobs that involved hunting them. But Jake and Nina didn't hear this conversation. They were focused on their mission, unaware that their reputation had already spread across the galaxy in ways they never imagined. As their ship lifted off from Zephyr Prime, heading toward Kepler 442b, neither of them knew they were walking into something much bigger than a simple capture job. They were about to discover why alien mercenaries had started refusing contracts that involved hunting human operatives. The answer would surprise them both. The desert planet Kepler 442b looked like a giant sandbox from space. Jake pressed his face against the ship's window as they descended through the thin atmosphere. The research facility appeared as a dark spot against the endless brown landscape. Sensors are picking up heavy security, Nina said from the pilot's seat. At least 200 personnel down there. Jake nodded. His enhanced vision could already see the guard towers and defensive walls surrounding the compound. Any sign of our target? Negative, but there's a lot of interference from the facility systems. Their ship landed at a small spaceport outside the main complex. Jake and Nina grabbed their gear and stepped out into the dry, hot air. The gravity was slightly heavier than Earth normal, making each step feel weighted. A Zephyrian guard met them at the landing pad. He was smaller than Kex Vorthak, with scarred scales and nervous eyes. You are the human mercenaries? He asked. That's us, Jake replied. The guard looked them up and down with obvious doubt. Follow me. Commander Zilks wants to speak with you. They walked across the dusty ground toward the facility's main entrance. Jake noticed something odd. The other guards kept staring at them, not with curiosity, but with something that looked almost like worry. Inside the facility, the corridors were clean and well lit. Alien workers moved quickly through the halls carrying datapads and equipment. Jake's enhanced hearing picked up fragments of conversations in different languages. Commander Zilks waited for them in a large office filled with holographic displays. He was another Zephyrian, but bigger and older than the others they had met. Battle scars covered his scales, and his 4 eyes held the look of someone who had seen real combat. So, he said without greeting them, Kex Vorthak has sent more humans to hunt the Kane woman. More humans? Nina asked. Zilks activated one of his displays. It showed security footage from 3 weeks ago. Jake watched as 2 human figures moved through the facility's corridors. They moved professionally, checking corners and watching for threats. Marcus Webb and Kelly Price, Zilek said. They were here hunting the same target. Very skilled operatives. What happened to them? Jake asked. Zilex's expression darkened. They disappeared. We found their ship abandoned in the desert. No bodies. No signs of struggle. They simply vanished. Jake and Nina exchanged a look. This was getting more complicated by the minute. Before them, Zilks continued. There were others. A team of Catherian hunters, 3 hegemony mercenaries, all looking for Lisa Kane, all disappeared. Maybe she's better than you thought, Nina suggested. Zilex made a sound that might have been laughter. Perhaps, or perhaps something else is happening here. He led them to another room where a reptilian alien waited. This one was different from the Zephyrians, smaller, with green skin and large yellow eyes. "This is Vex," Zilix said. "He will be your guide. He knows this facility better than anyone." Vex looked at the two humans with obvious distaste. "More mammals," he muttered. "This is waste of time." Jake smiled pleasantly. "We'll try not to disappoint you." Something in his tone made Vex step back slightly. The alien's large eyes widened, and he looked between Jake and Nina with new wariness. They spent the next hour touring the facility. Vex showed them the security systems, the living quarters, and the research labs. All the while, Jake and Nina memorized everything they saw. Room layouts, guard positions, computer terminals. It all went into their mental maps. Kane was last seen in Section C, Vex explained as they walked through a corridor lined with laboratories. She accessed the quantum research files before security discovered her. "What kind of research?" Nina asked. Vex hesitated. "Classified. Above your clearance level." Jake noticed something interesting. Every time they passed other personnel, conversations stopped. Workers would look at them, then quickly look away. Guards would adjust their weapons nervously. "Tell me," Jake said to Vex. "Have you worked with human mercenaries before?" "Few times," Vex replied carefully. "Usually end badly." Badly. How Vex was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "Humans are unpredictable. Other species, we know how they think, how they fight. Humans are different." They reached the facility's central hub, a large room filled with computer consoles and monitoring stations. Several hegemony soldiers stood guard, 8-foot-tall reptilian warriors in powered armor. One of them approached as soon as he saw Jake and Nina. His plasma rifle was not quite pointed at them, but not quite pointed away either. "Humans," the soldier growled in broken standard language. "What is your business here?" "Hunting a fugitive," Jake replied calmly. "With full authorization from your superiors." The hegemony soldier studied them for several seconds. His armored finger rested near his weapon's trigger. Finally, surprisingly, he nodded and stepped aside. "Be careful, humans," he said. "This place has claimed many hunters." As they moved on, Nina whispered to Jake, "Did that seem weird to you?" "Which part?" "All of it. The way everyone looks at us, like they're scared." Jake had noticed it too. There was something in the aliens' behavior that didn't make sense. They acted like Jake and Nina were dangerous, even though they had never met them before. In the facility's cafeteria, they sat down to eat and observe. Jake watched the other personnel while Nina monitored communications through her cybernetic implants. "Getting some interesting chatter," she said quietly. "Security is talking about us on their encrypted channels." "What are they saying?" "Something about Protocol 7, and they keep mentioning something called the human problem." Jake frowned. "Human problem?" "Sounds like some kind of tactical designation, like they have specific procedures for dealing with our species." Before Jake could respond, an alarm began blaring throughout the facility. Red lights flashed and automated voices announced an emergency in multiple languages. Vex appeared at their table, his yellow eyes wide with panic. "We have a situation," he said breathlessly. "Kane has been spotted in the lower levels, but that's not the problem." "What's the problem?" Jake asked. "The problem is what happened to the last team that cornered her down there," Vex replied. 3 hegemony soldiers went in. Only one came out, and he won't stop screaming. Jake and Nina looked at each other. Their simple capture job was turning into something much more interesting and much more dangerous. As they prepared to head to the lower levels, Jake couldn't shake the feeling that they were missing something important. Something about why everyone seemed so afraid of humans. He was about to find out that their reputation in the galaxy was very different from what they had imagined. The lower levels of the facility were darker and colder than the upper floors. Jake and Nina followed Vex through narrow corridors that seemed to stretch forever. Emergency lights cast strange shadows on the metal walls. "The survivor is in medical Bay 4, Vex explained as they walked. Dr. Krenth is treating him, but his mind seems broken. Jake could hear something ahead, a sound that made his skin crawl. It was screaming, but not the kind that came from physical pain. This was the sound of pure terror. They entered the medical bay to find a hegemony soldier strapped to a treatment table. The 8-foot warrior was thrashing against his restraints, his reptilian face twisted with fear. A small alien doctor was trying to inject him with something. No, 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 the soldier kept repeating in his broken standard. Human ghost. Human. Ghost in the dark, she not there, then she there, eyes like fire. Dr. Krenth looked up as they entered. He was a Catherian with blue skin and large black eyes. More humans, he said nervously. Perhaps you can make sense of this. What happened to him? Nina asked. His squad went to investigate reports of the Kane woman in Section D. They found her, but... The doctor gestured helplessly at the screaming soldier. Only he returned. The others are missing. Jake studied the terrified warrior. Hegemony soldiers were known throughout the galaxy as fearless fighters. They were bred for war, trained from birth to show no emotion in battle. Seeing one reduced to this state was disturbing. Where exactly did this happen? Jake asked. Vex pulled up a map on his datapad. Section D, Level 7 storage area for old equipment. Very little lighting down there. Security cameras? That's the strange part, Vex replied. The cameras show the 3 soldiers entering the area. Then the feeds go dark for 17 minutes. When they come back online, only this one is visible, running toward the exit. Nina accessed the facility's computer system through her implants. I'm seeing the footage now. Something interfered with the recording systems. But look at this. She projected the video feed onto the wall. They watched as 3 heavily armed hegemony soldiers moved carefully through a dark storage area. Their armor's built-in lights swept back and forth, searching for threats. Then the screen went black. When the image returned, they could see one soldier stumbling through the corridors, his weapon abandoned, his armor scorched and damaged. But what caught Jake's attention was the soldier's movements. He was looking over his shoulder constantly as if something was following him. Run it back, Jake said. Show me the last few seconds before the blackout. Nina replayed the footage. In the final moments before the cameras failed, Jake could see something that made his blood run cold. There was a figure in the shadows at the edge of the frame, human-shaped but moving in a way that seemed impossible. There, he pointed. Did you see that? Vex squinted at the screen. I see nothing. But Jake's enhanced vision had caught something. The alien eyes missed. For just a moment there had been a face in the darkness, a human face with eyes that reflected light like an animal's. We need to go down there, Nina said. Dr. Krenth looked horrified. That would be extremely unwise. Something dangerous is in those lower levels. That's why we're here, Jake replied, to handle dangerous things. As they prepared to leave the medical bay, Jake noticed something interesting. The terrified soldier had stopped screaming and was now staring at him and Nina with wide eyes. You, the soldier whispered. You are humans too. That's right, Jake said gently. She is human like you. But she is not like you. She is something else, something wrong. Nina knelt beside the treatment table. What do you mean wrong? Humans not supposed to move like that. Not supposed to see in dark like that. Not supposed to... He struggled with the words. Not supposed to hunt like that. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. Something about this didn't add up. Lisa Kane was supposed to be a data thief, not some kind of predator stalking soldiers in the dark. They left the medical bay and headed toward the lower levels. As they walked, Vex kept glancing at them nervously. Can I ask you something? He said finally. Sure, Nina replied. On my homeworld we have stories about Earth, about how humans evolved. Is it true that your planet was very dangerous? Jake nodded. More dangerous than most worlds, yes. And is it true that humans were hunters before they became civilized? Among other things, yes. Vex was quiet for a moment. Then he said, We have been studying human military records since your species joined the galactic community. Do you know what we found? What? Humans win battles they should lose. They survive situations that should kill them. They adapt to threats faster than our computers can calculate. This is not normal. Nina raised an eyebrow. You've been studying us? Everyone has been studying you, Vex replied. Do you not know this? Human combat effectiveness is taught in military academies across the galaxy, not as something to copy, but as something to avoid. Jake stopped walking. What do you mean, avoid? I mean that smart commanders try not to fight humans if they can. Help it. The casualty rates are too high. The unpredictability is too great. They reached the entrance to Section D. The corridor ahead was dark, lit only by emergency lighting. Jake could smell something strange in the air, a metallic scent that reminded him of blood. Before we go in there, Vex said, I need to ask you something else. Are all humans like you two? Like us how? Nina asked. Calm. Professional. But underneath? Vex struggled to find the words. There is something else underneath, yes? Something that waits? Jake didn't answer immediately. He was thinking about what the terrified soldier had said. About humans not being supposed to hunt like that. About eyes that reflected light in the dark. Vex, he said finally. What exactly? Do you know about Lisa Kane? Only what we were told. She is a data thief, a criminal. But you don't believe that? Vex looked around nervously, as if checking for listeners. Then he leaned closer and whispered, I think Lisa Kane is what humans become when they stop pretending to be civilized. Before Jake could respond, they heard a sound from the dark corridor ahead. It was soft, almost musical. Someone was humming. The tune was familiar, an old Earth song that Jake remembered from his childhood. But hearing it echoing through the empty corridors of an alien facility made it sound sinister and wrong. She knows we're here, Nina whispered. Jake nodded. His enhanced hearing could detect other sounds now, footsteps that were too quiet, breathing that was too controlled. Someone was moving through the darkness ahead of them, and that someone was very good at staying hidden. Vex, he said, I think it's time you told us what you really know about human operatives. But when he turned around, Vex was gone. The alien had vanished as silently as smoke, leaving Jake and Nina alone in the corridor. The humming continued, growing closer. And somewhere in the darkness ahead, something that had once been human was waiting for them. Jake and Nina moved carefully through the dark corridor. The humming had stopped, but Jake could still hear something moving in the shadows ahead. His enhanced vision let him see better than most humans, but even he struggled in the near-total darkness. Motion sensors are picking up movement, Nina whispered through their comlink. 30 meters ahead, moving parallel to us. Jake nodded. Whatever was down here was smart enough to avoid direct confrontation. It was stalking them, learning their patterns, waiting for the right moment to strike. They reached a junction where the corridor split into 3 directions. Jake examined the floor with his flashlight and found what he was looking for. Scratches in the metal. Claw marks, but not from any alien species he recognized. Nina, look at this. She knelt beside him and studied the marks. These are human fingernails, but look how deep they go. No normal person could scratch metal like this. Jake felt a chill. The marks looked like they had been made by someone in extreme pain or rage, someone who had clawed at the walls with inhuman strength. A sound echoed from the left corridor, a soft laugh that was definitely human but somehow wrong. It lasted too long and had a quality that made Jake's skin crawl. She's playing with us, Nina said. Or testing us, Jake replied. He had been thinking about what Vex had said. About humans not being supposed to hunt like this. Nina, what if Lisa Kane isn't the person we're looking for? What do you mean? What if she's what happens when a human operative gets pushed too far? When they stop following the rules? Before Nina could answer, the lights went out completely. Emergency power failed, plunging them into absolute darkness. Jake's enhanced vision was useless without any light source. Stay close, he whispered. They moved forward slowly, using their hands to feel along the walls. Jake could hear Nina's breathing beside him, steady and controlled despite the situation. It was one of the things he respected about her. She never panicked. A voice spoke from the darkness ahead of them. "Hello, Jake." "Hello, Nina." The voice was female with an American accent. It sounded perfectly normal, which somehow made it more frightening in the circumstances. "Lisa Kane?" Jake called out. Laughter echoed around them. It seemed to come from multiple directions at once. "Is that what they told you my name was? How interesting." "Who are you then?" Nina asked. "I'm what you're going to become," the voice replied. Eventually, Jake felt something brush against his shoulder. He spun around, but there was nothing there. His heart rate increased and he forced himself to stay calm. "You're human," he said to the darkness. "Whatever happened to you, we can help." "Help?" The voice sounded amused. "Do you know what happened to the last team that tried to help me? 3 hegemony soldiers, fully armed, trained from birth to kill. They lasted 7 minutes. "We're not hegemony soldiers," Nina said. "No, you're something much more interesting. You're what I used to be." Jake tried to track the voice, but it seemed to move constantly. Sometimes it sounded like it was right next to his ear. Other times it echoed from far away. "What do you want?" he asked. "I want you to understand something about what we really are, about why the aliens fear us." The lights suddenly came back on. Jake blinked as his eyes adjusted, then looked around quickly. The corridor was empty except for him and Nina. "Behind you," the voice whispered. Jake spun around to find a woman standing 3 feet away. She looked human, blonde hair, green eyes, average height. But something was wrong with the way she stood, too still, too balanced, like a predator waiting to strike. "Lisa Kane, I presume," Nina said, her hand moving slowly toward her weapon. "That name will do," the woman replied. "Though I've been many people since I started working in this part of the galaxy." Jake studied her carefully. She wore standard civilian clothes, nothing threatening, but his instincts were screaming danger. Everything about her body language suggested violence waiting to happen. "The data you stole," Jake said. "What was it?" Lisa smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. "Research data, about human psychology, about what makes us different from other species." "Different how?" "Tell me, Jake, have you ever wondered why human operatives have such high success rates? Why we adapt so quickly to new situations? Why other species seem afraid of us?" Jake had wondered about that, especially after his conversation with Vex. "It's because we're not like them," Lisa continued. "They evolved on stable worlds with predictable environments. We evolved on a planet that was actively trying to kill us, every day, for millions of years." She began walking slowly around them, never taking her eyes off their faces. "Do you know what persistence hunting is, Jake?" "Hunting prey by chasing it until it collapses from exhaustion," he replied. "Exactly. We're the only species that does it, the only species that can run for hours without stopping, the only species that gets stronger when we're stressed instead of weaker." Nina kept her weapon ready but didn't draw it. "What's your point?" "My point is that every other species in the galaxy has figured out what we are. We're apex predators, who learn to use tools and build spaceships. We're persistence hunters who can track our prey across star systems." Lisa stopped walking and faced them directly. "The aliens know this. They've been studying us since we joined the galactic community. They've learned that when you corner a human, when you threaten us, we don't become more predictable. We become more dangerous." Jake felt pieces of a puzzle clicking into place. "That's why the facility personnel were nervous around us. That's why mercenary guilds are refusing contracts involving human targets," Lisa added. "That's why the hegemony soldier upstairs is still screaming, because he saw what a human looks like when they stop pretending to be civilized." "And what do we look like?" Nina asked quietly. Lisa's smile widened, showing too many teeth. "Like the thing that used to hunt your ancestors in the dark, like the reason your species learned to fear the night." The lights went out again. In the darkness, Jake heard Nina's sharp intake of breath, then Lisa's voice much closer than before. "The question is, Are you ready to see what you really are? Or are you going to keep pretending you're just another civilized species? Jake reached for his weapon, but his hand closed on empty air. Somehow, in the few seconds of darkness, Lisa had disarmed both of them without making a sound. Lesson 1, her voice whispered from somewhere behind them. Humans are very good at taking things that don't belong to them. When the lights came back on, Lisa was gone. But on the wall, written in what looked like blood, was a message. Ask them why they really brought you here. Jake stared at the bloody message on the wall. Ask them why they really brought you here. The words seemed to burn into his mind. He and Nina stood in the empty corridor, their weapons gone, facing the possibility that everything they thought they knew was wrong. We need to get back to the upper levels, Nina said quietly. Something isn't right about this whole mission. Jake nodded. They retraced their steps through the dark corridors, both of them thinking about what Lisa Kane had told them. As they walked, Jake's enhanced hearing picked up conversations from the facility's communication system. Most of it was in alien languages, but some fragments were in standard. The humans are returning from Section D, someone was saying. Phase 2 can begin. Are you sure they're ready? Another voice replied. The psychological profiles suggest they may not accept the truth. Nina grabbed Jake's arm. Did you hear that? Phase 2 of what? Jake muttered. They reached the main level to find the facility strangely quiet. Most of the personnel seemed to have disappeared. Only a few guards remained at their posts, and they watched Jake and Nina with obvious nervousness. Commander Zilks was waiting for them in the central hub, but he wasn't alone. Beside him stood a human woman in a military uniform Jake didn't recognize. She was older, maybe 50, with gray hair and the bearing of someone used to command. Agent Morrison, Agent Brooks, she said in a crisp voice. I'm Colonel Sarah Martinez, Special Operations Division. We need to talk. Jake felt the bottom drop out of his stomach. Colonel, what are you doing here? Cleaning up a mess that should have been handled months ago, she replied. Please sit down, both of you. They sat at a conference table while Colonel Martinez activated a privacy screen around them. The device hummed softly, blocking their conversation from outside listeners. First things first, she said. There is no Lisa Kane. That woman you met downstairs is Agent Rebecca Stone. She was one of our best operatives until she went rogue 6 months ago. Rogue how? Nina asked. She discovered something during a mission. Something about how other species view humanity. It changed her, made her dangerous. Colonel Martinez pulled up a holographic display showing mission reports and psychological evaluations. Agent Stone became obsessed with what she called human supremacy. She believed that our species was naturally superior to all others and that we should stop hiding it. Jake studied the reports. Rebecca Stone's mission record was impressive. Dozens of successful operations across multiple star systems. But the psychological evaluations showed a gradual change over time. Growing aggression. Decreased empathy for non-humans. Signs of what the psychologists called predatory escalation. She started killing targets instead of capturing them, Colonel Martinez continued. She would hunt enemy operatives through space stations and colonies, terrorizing entire populations. She wasn't just completing missions anymore, she was enjoying the hunt. So you sent us to stop her, Nina said. Actually, no. We sent you to understand her. Jake looked up sharply. What? Colonel Martinez's expression became grave. Gentlemen, Agent Stone isn't unique. Over the past 2 years, we've had 17 operatives go rogue in similar ways. All of them discovered the same thing she did. Which is? That we scare the hell out of every other species in the galaxy. She activated another display, this one showing communication intercepts from various alien governments and military organizations. Jake read through them with growing amazement. The Galactic Council had held 3 emergency sessions about the human problem. Military academies across known space were teaching courses on how to avoid confronting human forces. Insurance companies were refusing to cover operations that might involve human retaliation. Look at this, Colonel Martinez said, highlighting a particular document. This is from the Hegemony High Command. They're advising their officers to retreat rather than engage human operatives in direct combat. Nina shook her head in disbelief. But humans only make up a tiny fraction of galactic population. Why would they be so afraid of us? Because we're different in ways that matter, Colonel Martinez replied. We evolved on a world where everything was trying to kill us. Other species evolved on stable, predictable worlds. When they face a serious threat, they try to negotiate or run away. When we face a serious threat, we hunt it down and eliminate it. Jake thought about his encounter with Rebecca Stone, the way she had moved in the darkness, the casual way she had disarmed them both, the look in her eyes that suggested she was always calculating the best way to kill everything around her. She's not wrong, is she? He said quietly. About what we are? No, she's not wrong. But she's not right either. Colonel Martinez leaned forward. Yes, we're predators. Yes, we're more aggressive than most species. But that doesn't make us superior. It just makes us dangerous. Then why are you telling us this? Nina asked. Because the secret is out. Word is spreading across the galaxy about human capabilities. Some species are calling for restrictions on human travel and trade. Others are suggesting that humanity should be quarantined to Earth. Jake felt a chill. And some are probably thinking about a preemptive strike. Exactly. We need operatives who understand what we really are, but who can still work with other species. Who can be the face of a humanity that's dangerous, but not evil. Colonel Martinez stood up and walked to the window overlooking the desert landscape. The old approach isn't working anymore. We can't pretend to be just another civilized species. But we also can't let agents like Rebecca Stone represent what humanity becomes when we stop hiding our nature. What happened to the other rogue agents? Jake asked. Most of them are dead. A few are in maximum security detention. Rebecca is the first one we've tried to bring back. And if she won't come back? Colonel Martinez turned to face them. Her expression was hard as stone. Then you do what human operatives do best. You hunt her down and you stop her. Permanently. Jake looked at Nina. They both understood what they were being asked to do. Not just capture a rogue agent, but confront the question of what humanity really was in the galactic community. There's something else, Colonel Martinez added. The alien governments aren't the only ones watching us. There are human factions on Earth who agree with Rebecca Stone, who think we should embrace our nature as apex predators and dominate the galaxy. A war is coming, Nina said quietly. Maybe. Or maybe we can find a third option. A way to be what? We are without becoming monsters. Jake stood up. Where is Rebecca now? Still in the facility, waiting to see what you decide. And what exactly are we deciding? Colonel Martinez smiled grimly. Whether humanity's reputation in the galaxy will be that of honorable warriors or merciless killers. Whether other species will respect us or try to destroy us before we destroy them. Jake nodded. The mission was clear now. They weren't just hunting a rogue agent. They were defining what it meant to be human in a galaxy that had finally figured out what Earth's children really were. As they prepared to return to the lower levels, Jake realized that Rebecca Stone had been right about one thing. The aliens were afraid of humans. The question was whether that fear would lead to respect or to war. Either way, the galaxy would never look at humanity the same way again.